talking to Florida State Representative Kevin Ambler about Amendment 5 and some of the implications that might have on our business environment. Welcome to the show, Kevin.
Welcome, thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Thanks, yeah. We'd love to hear from your perspective what you see this proposed amendment possibly doing to our Florida's economy.
Well, I can discuss the amendment from one of two perspectives. The first is, of course, the amendment is up for review before the Florida Supreme Court.
Yes.
And that issue, which really concerns a matter of whether it's sufficiently clear and unambiguous and fairly, tells voters what it is that they're going to be asked to decide upon, is one issue. And then quite apart from that is really the underpinnings of what Amendment 5 was intending to do. So I'm prepared to talk about either one, but they really are kind of different things.
Yeah, they are. Right now it's up at the Supreme Court because of the ambiguous language. So there's something wrong with the way it's written, obviously.
The Second Judicial Circuit up in Leon County heard the matter and had all the arguments presented by both sides, and I believe went through a very thoughtful analysis of the ballot title and the ballot summary. There's a 75-word summary that has to go on the ballot, and they have to decide whether that is clear and unambiguous in communicating to the voter what the intention is and all of the chief aspects of the amendment, so that the voter doesn't have to read the long version. And what the court found was that there were a couple of issues that were not really covered by the amendment or covered in a fair way, and because of that the court struck the ballot language, and now the Supreme Court will be the ultimate determiner of whether it stays on or off. Still, what you're reading is that 75-word summary, not just the title of the ballot measure. A lot of people, believe it or not, simply will go in and vote based on just the 6 or 7 word title and try to make a decision. It's very important to read that 75-word summary, but the actual full ballot measure itself is far more lengthy than that. And what the court is very concerned about is that people reading just the summary will have a true idea of what it's about.
Now, what is the title of Amendment 5 on the ballot sheet?
The Amendment 5 deals with a swap of a portion of the real estate taxes that the state assesses against each property, whether it's commercial or residential, for the schools. Mm-hmm. And if I could just give you a little bit of background, I think it'll help your viewers understanding this, the breakdown.
Great.
A portion of everybody's tax bill, whether it's your home or your business, is assessed by the local government, your county commission, your city council and such. And then there's a separate portion on your tax bill that's assessed by the schools. And then the state assesses a tax on your property that's collected by the schools for the schools. And we call that the required local effort. So that portion of your tax bill that the state imposes to cover the cost of schools, which the schools collect, that portion, the required local effort, is what this ballot measure deals with. Taking the portion that the state obligates the school districts in each county to collect and eliminating that from your tax bill. In Hillsborough County, for example, that would be about a 20 to 25% reduction permanently off of everyone's tax bill. In some counties, that could be as much as 40%. Permanent reduction eliminated off of your tax bill. Not just your home, but your business and any other property that you own. So apartment complexes, rental properties, everybody would see that kind of reduction off their tax bill if that portion of the school tax, which the state imposes, is eliminated. So the intention of Amendment 5 is to take that portion that property owners are paying, take that off of your tax bill, and instead require the legislature to come up with other revenue sources besides property taxes as a way of funding that same amount.
Sure sounds enticing if you don't know what those other revenue sources could
Well,
be.
at the core of Amendment 5, and that's why I said, talking about why it's thrown off the ballot or whether it should or should not be on the ballot, because it may or may not be misleading to voters in the way the 75-word summary and title were phrased, is really a different issue than discussing what's necessary in Florida to get it back on track, to be competitive in the marketplace. We are not simply a state that competes with other states. We compete with the countries around the globe. And we want to make our state attractive for people to come and live and raise their families and retire. And that means a large part of our economy has been dependent on the past on people coming and locating here for second homes. A large part of our economy has been dependent on people buying businesses here and operating businesses here. And so when the cost of doing that becomes too expensive, then people can choose to move elsewhere. They can go to Georgia, they can go to South Carolina, they can go to Tennessee, all states that are charging far less than Florida is for property taxes. And in turn, that creates a spiraling effect that what we have traditionally thought as a very stable form of raising revenue through property taxes is no longer as stable as we once thought it was, because the public is recognizing they have a point at which they feel they will not be taxed or they will choose to go elsewhere.
Now, obviously, a lot of people are in trouble right now with the property tax situation, as you were discussing, but it seems odd to me that out of all things in Florida, they would place education in as what is ultimately just riding on this new source that we don't even know where this funding would come from.
Well, to understand that, you need to understand why they packaged the two together. And really, therein lies the problem as to why Amendment 5 was stricken by the court off the ballot. What the court said was the part that they felt was misleading is that the swap out of the school property tax for other revenue sources only guaranteed a minimum level of funding for the schools for 1 year. And then that really wasn't clear from the ballot summary. And that
so following that year, what would happen?
Well, the legislature would likely have to maintain that level, but wouldn't be required to as required in the ballot measure. And the court said that's misleading.
Sure.
The court felt that if you want to make this a permanent hold harmless for educational funding, meaning that, and just to give you a slight technical analysis here, what it would do is set it at a 2010 funding level based on 2008, 2007, 2006, all averaged together with their growth rates. So they would set that as a minimum bar of funding and say that was guaranteed. And that's what they call the hold harmless provision. That whatever funding they should have gotten in 2010 from the required local effort portion of the property tax, that amount of money is guaranteed from the revenue that the legislature has to find elsewhere. But that guarantee only lasted for a year. And that's what the court said that they found to be misleading to the voter.
No wonder the education system is against this amendment also.
Well, the education system, if they understand that it was a guaranteed minimum floor, probably shouldn't be against it. But I agree with their opposition to it if it's not a permanent guarantee. Because if they have a permanent guaranteed floor, no other section of the budget, not transportation, not the judicial system, not the healthcare system, no other segment of the budget has a minimum guaranteed funding level. All boats rise or fall in the harbor together, but yet education was going to be carved out with a special protection of being given minimum funding. It didn't say that was all the legislature could appropriate, it just said no less than that. So if that had been permanent, that wasn't such a bad thing. And I had this very discussion with representatives of the Florida School Administrators Association. But where their argument has validity is that if you're only giving that guarantee for a year, that means after that year, that funding could be affected and will not have the benefit of a guarantee.
Wow.